Hey, hey. Hopefully we have some audio. Oh, it looks like we're live. All right, cool. Do some work. Make sure there's nothing in this drawer that shouldn't be in here. Give you guys an update. I'm gonna grab my, I don't have the iPad here. Son of a gun. Better put these on just in case. Can you guys hear me? I'm gonna go check. I'm gonna grab my laptop and set it here just for a few seconds, just so that we can get going. I thought we'd talk a little bit today about some of these issues. Let's see what we got here. Turn this down. Oh, cool. It is up and running. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm just gonna bring this over here. Hope this doesn't jam anything up. I just got this. I'm just grabbing my laptop so that if you guys have questions, I can answer them. But this is mainly this live stream is primarily for my patrons. I haven't put a bunch of stuff up lately, and I wanted to cover kind of as many birds as I could in one stone, or get as many get as many birds with one stone as I possibly could. Got it. Okay, so we got some people. Can you guys? Good. You guys can hear. Is this like the noise level or like the gain? It sounds about right. Because this mic, I can change it, and just want to make sure that you're good. Cool. All right. So what I'm doing right now today, I'll be back and forth on camera because I just have a bunch of things to do. Is I'm unloading electrodes. A lot of times I'll wear gloves when I do this, but what I'm doing is I'm unloading electrodes from a job that we just ran. And I'll show you guys real quick. This is an EDM machine. It's called Electrical Discharge machine, which means that basically it burns. This cuts metal with electricity. It burns. If you have a welder that has too much current and you try to use like a big thick welding stick rod on a piece of sheet metal and you blow a hole in it, that's kind of what this does, but like 50,000 times more advanced. It uses spark erosion. You might hear spark eroder, die sinker, RAM EDM, which just stands for electrical discharge machining. And that's what this does. And probably the vast majority of all the plastic products that you touch, the molds are made with a machine like this. Or if the entire mold isn't made with a machine like this, bits and pieces or segments or certain features within the mold are made with a machine like this. And think about this. There aren't many ways to make a square hole with a round cutter or a cutter that is spinning. So anytime you see a beautifully square feature on one of your plastic products, how else would they have made it except for with something like this? Or maybe some type of broaching technology. It's hard to say. So anyways, yeah, so what I do is I make all these electrodes, and you guys can see there's a tool changer. The machine's not on right now. I've just got it shut down. There's no point in letting the machine build on time hours when you're not actually running it. You can see that there's a tool changer here, and there's so many different ways of organizing your tools. Traditionally, in a CNC machine, like a milling machine, when you program a part, when you're cutting a part, you're using the center line of the spindle. And that can be the case with EDM as well, but it isn't always the case. For all intents and purposes, in a CNC milling machine like the VF2 or the Super Mini Mill or any of these machines, you either program to the center line of the spindle, or you program the part geometry, and then the control itself just will account for the diameter of the tool. EDM's different. It's not the same. It doesn't work that way. Let's just say you had an electrode. Let me see if I can find something that would be interesting. Okay, let's just say this. This is a stupid example, but we'll use it anyways. Let's just say this was your electrode. In a milling machine, the perfect center of the part is always like a reference. And then because it spins, you would just like offset the cutter by the radius of the tool. But in a sinker EDM, it doesn't work that way. In a sinker EDM, you can designate where you want the reference to be. So just like in a milling machine where you have a work offset, basically you can kind of set a work offset for the cutting tool as well. So instead of saying the machine references the spindle, the center line of your electrode, you could like put this thing on an arm, so the spindle's here, like this, and it's going like this, and so it comes down and it plunges in different directions. And so, long story short, there's a lot that can be done, and so you can actually set your zero on your electrode basically wherever you want it, and that's all done in software. And so, the programming of the program itself on an EDM machine isn't really rocket science. It actually looks a hell of a lot like an Excel spreadsheet, but making sure that you're creating features in your molds that honor the geometry of the drawing itself or the design itself. Now that is a story for another day. And what I wanted to talk about today, I've had a variety of really interesting phone calls with guys. This week alone, I've had about 4 or 5 phone calls. Well, actually, the last 2 weeks, it's been about 4 or 5 different guys that have kind of reached out to me, asking some questions about machining, product development, stuff like that. And I've learned to do pretty much everything I need to do here at my business. But there are a variety of different levels of capability when I look at the landscape on YouTube when it comes to manufacturing, machining, things like this. By the way, I wanted to show you guys this real quick. You see that I've got these things labeled. I don't know how clear this, but you can see that it says tool 11, tool 14, and then obviously 15, 16, 17, 18. And then what I do is when I'm running 2 sets or roughing and finishing sets, I run them, I have different colored markers on different generations of tool trays. And so I thought I would show you that. But what I find when I'm looking at all the machinists on YouTube is that there's a lot of variation, and the truth is, I don't think there's a whole hell of a lot I don't think there's a hell of a lot I can provide, or I shouldn't say can, but need to provide through YouTube when it comes to just good old-fashioned CNC machining. If you guys want speeds and feeds, you can either call the manufacturer that's providing the tool, and if you don't want to deal with that, like let's just say you got like one of those little, like a little Tormach, like the 1100 MX down here at the end of the row. The VF2, if you have a 1/2-inch end mill, pretty much any speeds and feeds that you get from any of the manufacturers, Helical, Lakeshore, Redline, Kodiak, whoever makes the end mill, they have feeds and speeds that are probably pretty close or pretty good. But if you have a machine that's, say, a little bit less rigid, like I'll give you both of the Tormach and the Super Mini Mill fit into this category. Once you pass a 3/8 inch end mill in the Super Mini Mill and a 1/4 inch end mill in the Tormach, I find that sometimes the tools are to some degree based on the material. Like I cut a lot of P20, but I've played around with some A2, cut a lot of 4140, a lot of 1018, a lot of A36, which is like flame cut or something. But you'll find that there's limits. There's limits to the setup. And so there are a lot of different, you can go to the manufacturers and they can give you speeds and feeds. And a lot of times they're a great starting point. A lot of times they're quite conservative. But if you have a machine like the Tormach or the Super Mini Mill, then you might be better off either, I shouldn't say better off, but like John Saunders has this thing called Proving Cut. It's basically like a speeds and feeds membership site. Don't think you'd need that for the VF2. I haven't needed it for the VF2. But I can tell you right now, when I'm tinkering down there with the Tormach, I've been doing some test parts for students here in the future. And sometimes it would just make life easier, faster, simpler to just log into a website, see what cutter they were using, see what depth of cut, feed speed, you know, and just, it would save time. Let's see what we got here. All right, so anyways, the reason I'm bringing all this stuff up is because when I look at all of these are drawbars. I'll show you guys here one second here. Let me get some of this crap and I'll bring it over and show it to you guys. But what I was getting at here is that when I watch guys like Edge Precision, who I've mentioned many, many times, and so many others that I haven't really mentioned a lot, guys like Robin Renzetti, Stefan Gotteswinter, this old Tony, these guys, I don't know if these guys are all professional machinists. I mean, I know for a fact, obviously, that that Robin is like a tool and die guy. Obviously, Stefan has done an apprenticeship and is very, very talented. I guess what I'm getting at here is some guy that is running a small manufacturing business that learns CNC machining isn't going to bring to the table the skill set that a master of the craft. I'm not going to bring the skill set that Robin has. I'm not going to bring the skill set of someone like Stefan. I have a very unique skill set that's highly specialized to what I do. But the biggest difference between these guys that are really masters, Peter from Edge Precision, is that I'm not in the business of machining. Many of these guys, they're in what is ultimately a service-based business. They are selling their skill set. And so if you want to do that, I'm probably not the guy to learn from. Like, one of those guys is far superior. But if you want to create your own products and you want to find that special balance, I think that I have more to offer there. So I'll probably be doing a fair bit less of just CNC stuff. We're going to do some stuff. We're going to talk about some stuff and some tools and stuff. And I thought I'd show you guys some stuff that is kind of near and dear to my heart while I set this up. Let's check here. This is all graphite. I don't know if this drawer, if you guys can see in here or not. Let's see. I'm going to wait for the delay on the camera. Yeah, you guys can see. So you see all this stuff. This is all graphite. And just like when you were kids in school and you had pencil lead, that really wasn't lead. That was graphite. And graphite is actually categorized based on its grain structure. And throughout the world, there are two main mediums that these EDM machines use to do their cutting. It's generally speaking graphite or copper. And here in the West, we pretty much exclusively use graphite. From time to time, you'll hear stories of guys using copper. In Asia, copper is actually quite a bit more prevalent, a fair bit. And I guess some parts of Europe, it's quite a bit more prevalent. There are benefits and drawbacks to each. Graphite is, from what I understand, a fair bit cheaper, but it's far freer cutting, but it's messy. It's just absolutely messy. From what I've been told, it's not terribly, it's more or less inert. It's not going to hurt you, but it's electrically conductive, which sucks for any machines that are around, and it makes an absolute mess. And it can be quite abrasive when it's mixed with lubrication like oil if it gets into the linear guides or the ways of your machine. So many times, many mold shops that actually have sinker EDMs, many times they don't even make their own electrodes. They farm them out to an electrode shop. I just couldn't afford to do that. I was in a position that we literally couldn't do it. So it was kind of an all or nothing for me. So people ask why I make my own electrodes. I do it, because I had to, because the economics just didn't work any other way. Not only that, but if you make a mistake and you blow out an electrode or you break one, you know, it's nice to be able to go over there to your machine and just make a freshie. This is a big fat stack of graphite, and these sticks range in cost. I'll show you guys here. A stick like this is a 3/4 inch wide by 1/2 inch thick, so 19 millimeters by 13 millimeters by 75 millimeters by 3 inches. I think this runs about, man, it's been a while. I buy a lot of my stuff from this place here. Maybe it's 14 bucks. You know, so you can see that, like, when you got stacks and stacks and stacks, the stuff adds up pretty quickly. But what happens is, just like when you're making a part with a CNC milling machine, you have to rough and then finish the part. And so if you want really crisp corners on whatever it is you're making, if you've designed it so that it's round, that's kind of nice. You can kind of cheat the system a little bit. But if you've designed a product that has a really crisp, clean corner, well, as you're using your graphite to burn into your piece of steel or whatever it is you're making, not only are you eroding away the workpiece material, but you're actually eroding away material from the electrode itself. And so it will become dull. Now, in the good old tap burner days, or if you're just doing like a feature like, say, a keyway or something like that can't be broached, you can do what's called dressing the electrode. And you basically just grind off the wore down material and you start fresh with a fresh portion of the material. But when you're doing EDM work with an electrode that has been machined to a very specific geometry, like I do, there is no redressing the electrode. You just make another electrode and you run back through. And what's funny is, so this tool changer here holds 20 tools total. You can see that there's what looks like a probe in the spindle. I know that this isn't super clear. See if this helps a little bit. All this is a little pallet. This is the element that clamps into the chuck. This is a System 3R chuck. There are two main brands, System 3R and Erowa, E-R-O-W-A. Erowa is a fair bit more common in Europe. System 3R is quite common here in the United States. And there's this little reference element. They call them pallets, just like a Midaco pallet or Pearson pallet. And what happens is you put this aluminum chunk onto your pallet, and then I just drilled a hole and I put this little stem that I bought from I don't know if I bought this from Drewtronics or something, but it's just a little probe stem, but it's conductive. It's got to be conductive. A lot of times if they have anything in here, like any compound that blocks conduction, that would be a problem. You can buy dedicated probing systems for these machines. I'm going to grab one of these pallets. You can buy dedicated probing systems for these machines, but this particular machine doesn't really need one. And it doesn't need one. Oh yeah, I found some copper too, by the way. So I'm just grabbing an assortment of crap to show you guys. All right, here we go. This ought to be pretty good. Well, actually, one more piece. All right, now we got a whole bunch of crap to show you guys. Yeah, you can buy dedicated probing systems. This particular machine, I haven't needed one because it has its own ability to kind of calibrate itself, if you will. So remember I was telling you guys earlier, so first you have the pallet. That's this thing right here. This is one that you can buy that just has a blank piece of aluminum on it, and then you can machine it to hold whatever you want. If you have some type of unique geometry that you need to hang on to, you can. In the early days when I was doing development on some of our projects, I was going to run everything in an arm. So you see that this is just a prefabricated electrode holder, and then I put this arm in here, and then this arm was actually going to have a pocket in it that would have actually held a piece of graphite just like this. That way we could sweep through like a circular position. Never ended up needing to do that. Still could do that. So a couple of things. How do you hold your, this is a piece of copper. This is a piece I was doing some testing. This is very old. But how do you do some testing? You actually got to have a chuck. And so these are held into the machine itself with a drawbar. Like that, okay? So this goes up in there, it gets held in there. It's different. But when you want to hold one of these inside the milling machine, you have to have something that simulates the chuck on the machine in your milling machine. And so you get something like this. You get something like this, and you mount it however you want. And then this goes in here, but obviously you can see that this comes out the bottom. This won't work. So what you need is a special drawbar that works with this chuck. And so you got this little shorty drawbar with this chuck. It goes in here. You put a little lever in here and you twist it over to the side, and she's all locked up nice and tight. You're not going to be doing any heavy duty roughing, but it'll get the job done. Well, in my earliest days, I bought a few of these chucks, and these are cheap ones. The good ones are about $3,000 a piece. This is a cheapie, $600-700. Which blows my mind, but that's what it is. You see that this has a ground surface on it, and I'm not showing you the brand because I don't want any hate. But what happened was, I assumed because they were all ground that they were all the same. Well, I learned some really valuable lessons about datums and reference surfaces. I had 3 of these lined up so that we could do 3 electrodes at once, and what would happen is I made the mold and things weren't even for whatever reason. Everything was out of spec and out of tolerance, and I couldn't understand why. Well, come to find out, you actually have to buy something like this. This is a reference element. And what this does is when you set up your fixturing in your milling machine, this goes in here, and then you can check for center through the reference element circle. You can check for parallelism, for perpendicularity or parallelism on the X, Y, all this stuff. I bought this one used. I got lucky. I found this on eBay for about $800 or $900. I'm pretty sure that this is about 17 or 1800 bucks. You'd have to look at the System 3R site, but man, it's just like once you're down the rabbit hole, you just keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Let's see here. Man, there's some crazy shit going on in the comments. So why are we talking about this EDM? This is my second EDM machine. I went and I visited the engineers at Mitsubishi here in California, and I told them what I was doing. I took a representation of what I intended to make, and they very openly and honestly said, Jason, you know, we're not mold makers. We're engineers that deal with this technology, and this is, you know, what we believe will happen. They told me how many electrodes they thought it would take, and they were, you know, they weren't terribly far off on their estimation of what it would take, but long story short is there was my first machine didn't have a tool changer. And so they told me it would take a specific amount of work, and lo and behold, they were right in like a technical sense, but many times these electrodes aren't ran for one location only. You'll run them for a few locations as a rougher, and then you'll come in behind them with a finisher, and you kind of run this staggered pattern. And let's just say that you were gonna rough 4 holes. You could rough the holes 1, 2, 3, 4 with electrode 1. And then if you wanted them to be as even as you could go backwards. You could take electrode 2 and you could go 4, 3, 2, 1. And then theoretically, you'd have an even amount of electrode wear. But what if you had 2 electrodes and you went hole 1, 2, 3, 4 with electrode 1, and then with electrode 2, you went 1, 2, 3, 4. Well then, for sure, hole number 1 is going to be the largest, and then, or closest to the drawing, and hole number 4 is going to be progressively smaller. And so when you have an uneven number of electrodes that's going to be burning in a specific location, you got to be really careful with how you order your burns. And so I bought my first machine, worked great. Mitsubishi makes a quality EDM machine. I was very happy with the machine's capability. What I was unhappy with was laying on a military cot, getting up in the middle of the night to change electrodes when I was doing projects that, you know, it took 200 electrode changes or something like that. And so, long story short, the guys over at North South Machinery, who I believe own this company, were super good to me. They made me a really good deal. They took the old one back or bought it back. I don't remember exactly how it worked out, but all I know is the numbers worked out quite fairly for us to trade in our brand new 50 hour or 100 hours of burn time old EDM and switch out to this EA12S. I believe there's actually even a newer model. I think this year, maybe middle of this year or next year, they're releasing a newer model with a better control, but I don't care. The guys were so good to me over there that I was just thankful, and this machine has done a great job. And I really believe in my heart that this is the right machine for our business. You can get like great big giant tool changers that are like self-sustained robots that hold hundreds of electrodes that can serve 2 EDM machines. This one, you see, it's kind of got like an umbrella under it, but you can actually get one that actually has like a belt tool changer. And so let's see what else we got here. Okay, so the title of this video was The Friday Grind, Quit Your Day Job, Buy the Right Machine, Develop the Perfect Product. And so let me start switching some of these trays out, and we're going to talk more about this. Most of you guys, if you've watched for any duration of time, you know that, man, I've had my fair share of issues with machines. Basically, every brand of machine I've ever bought, which is just a couple, I've had some issues with. But a big part of my struggles have been not only machine performance, but have been a fair bit of not having the right expectation. I want to tell you guys right now that in many cases, things can be done with machines that maybe shouldn't be done. And I guess what I'm getting at here is my little Haas machines, they've served me well. And there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't believe that my business would have grown to the point that it's at. Hell, I don't even know if it would be here without Haas. So I'm thankful. I'm grateful. I've been through the ringer, but both Haas, the machines, have got me to where I'm at. With that said, is it the right machine? Maybe, maybe not. If you're in a job shop environment, which I am not, I want to repeat this because I really think that this is a huge piece of the puzzle that gets missed. I am not in a job shop environment. Typically, if you're in a job shop environment, you'll hear things said like, if the spindles aren't turning, you aren't earning. That's not me. This machine shop makes molds that kind of feed the heart of the business, which is the molded products that we manufacture. And so it's we're in a very different situation. And by the way, we're not a mold shop that actually makes molds for customers. We're a mold shop that makes our own products. And so that's a very different position to be in. I had a pretty interesting conversation with a guy that makes balisongs, butterfly knives. And we were kind of talking about this. The right machine, many times there's a perfect machine. And what I mean is, when you're making anything round, you probably should have a lathe. But a lathe can't make great big square things. So sometimes we find ourselves stuck where we're using a machine that is for sure not the perfect machine, but it is the machine that's capable of doing a job. And so when I bought the VF2, there were a few things I really liked about it. It had the travels that could allow us to make, we have some pretty big, I can't drag one over here, like 200 pounds, but they're like 18-inch square mold base plates. They're like 3 inches thick. It will make those, but it will also make the full 5-axis simultaneous cuts on some of our cores to make this like special geometry that we have to have. And it's pretty rare in the machining world. It's just not common to need both of those capabilities in the same machine. And so the VF2, this VF2 SSYT is an extremely versatile machine, but it's not typically what one would see if you walked into a shop that's making, molds or injection molds or whatever. You're not going to see. It's definitely not generally considered the first choice for the most precision of jobs, I guess you might say. But it's done us really well. And I honestly think we had put it up for sale just because I thought we would get something that's a little bit more specialized. But it doesn't look like it's going to sell, and I'm okay with that. I think what I'm going to do is just break down, hire a company to come laser calibrate it. I'll have to get a service key and stuff like that because the thing's been making good parts. So is it the perfect machine? It's not. It's not the perfect machine, but it is capable. I want to talk a little bit about machine capabilities and day jobs because I've had two guys. It just so happens that I've had two different guys talk about machining for a day job. An employee makes a deal with their employer, whether they discuss it or not. It happens, and that is the employee trades to some degree or another some of the value he provides through his effort for job security through a consistent paycheck and very little risk. And the owner of a business takes a lot of risk, takes, I guess, all the risk technically, in exchange for this, in this deal that occurs. And I think a lot of guys go into, they want to quit their day job, and they don't always know what they're up against. So in this building right here, you see that we have the EDM. We have the, I'm going to turn this camera around so you guys can see. Make sure there's nothing, there's Pop-Tarts, I'm getting hungry. We have the VF2, the Super Mini Mill, the little Tormach and little used Tormach lathe that I bought. And I'll tell you guys that, I'm just grabbing my laptop right now. One of the things that I think that happens that's kind of messed up is that guys don't always, if you have like a little Grizzly CNC mill or something like that, and you add a Tormach, I'm eating these Pop-Tarts, I don't care, I'm starving. I hope my wife's not watching. If you have a Grizzly and you upgrade to like an 1100 MX, you have so much more capability, it's not even close. Like, especially if you have a tool changer. But the challenge is that you still, if you're trying to do job shop work, you're heading out into an arena where you could very well be up against a guy like Peter Stanton, for the love of God, right? So if you have the right parts that are, let's just say, small parts, they don't take a lot of horsepower, they don't take a lot of rigidity, they don't take a lot of accuracy, then that Tormach might actually compete on like small parts that are, let's just say, the size of, I don't know, a half of a dollar bill or a 50-cent piece or something like that, right? But if you have great big round chunks of steel that are 8 inches round and let's just say 1.5 inches or 2 inches thick, that Tormach might make them, and it might even make them to spec, and that's fine, but the material removal rates just would never compete with a machine that's designed specially for that. And so when guys talk to me about quitting their day job to do machining like in their garage or something like that, like there's nothing quite like working for yourself. You have to sacrifice, you have to work super hard, you have to be accountable and responsible for everything that happens, whether it's in your control or out of your control, but it can be done. But I just think that in this instance, it's really one of those things where it's kind of like a math problem. You don't want to try and start solving the answer when you don't have all the information. I'm just reading through some of the comments here. Give me a few seconds. When I say perfect machine, what I mean is that, for instance, when you make a mold, does it come off the machine flawless? I'm going to grab a couple things. I want to show you guys a couple things. I got this paper here. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of boride abrasives, but they sell these things. I don't know if they're actually the OEM. Show you my Dremel drawer. If I can. Oh, I can't because this thing's blocking it. Anyways, that's my Dremel drawer right there. And so I'll get these things out here in a second. They make these things right here. Hope this focuses. It's just on a crappy Dremel right now. But this is what they are. They're just these little, they look like rubber. And what they do is they have grit. They're molded with grit, and they have a little hole in them. And so when you cut your surface finish, when you cut your part, you guys already all know this, a ball nose end mill has a theoretical 0 surface speed at the pole, right? At the very bottom of its z-axis measurement. And so just like you rough and finish, sometimes you have to rough, pre-surface, and then final surface to get the very best surface finish. And I guess what I'm getting at here is there are specific types of geometry that probably could be made faster and with a better surface finish and tolerance right off the machine if you have the money to buy that machine. Whether it's a Kern or a Grobe or a Hermle or whatever, it's, you know, the tool magazine itself might be more expensive than this VF2. So this VF2 is a super capable machine, and to be completely honest with you, it's made a lot of good parts. But it's not the, I wonder if those are still out here. There's a couple of pieces that we make. Well, here's one of the leader pins we get from PCS. And the fit on this thing, it goes in through a bushing. I think I got one down here. Hold on. Okay, here it is. This is a leader pin that I get from PCH. It's a mold components company. And the fit is just absolutely, I want to say it's right around a thou, okay? And you can see it's a tight fit. This actually needs to be chamfered, but still, it's a beautiful fit. This stuff's all hardened and stuff like that. Well, if you were to have these, if you were to pull the rotary off, which is what I do, and then you were to, say, drill a hole here, and then drill a hole here at each corner, and even if you were really careful and you used your boring head and you had just a flawless fit and everything's like perfectly perpendicular, it's cylindrical, it's exactly the way it ought to be, when you do your next plate and you press the bushings in, if you're off by relatively small amounts, you'll get friction. And you can gall up and kind of tear up these pins, these sets, these pins and bushings. And so, number one, I'm at a disadvantage because this shop that we're in, it's not thermally controlled. So a lot of times, there are workarounds, okay? You could drill through, you could stack up two of the plates that you needed to line up, and you could drill through both of them at once and run the boring head through both at once if you have that capability. Unfortunately, I bought all the attachments for my little ITS boring head, the ISCAR boring head, which I love, by the way. I bought that after watching Peter Stanton use about 1 billion of them. The guy's got like $1 million in boring heads. But it still won't reach. For what I need, it actually won't reach as far as I need it to reach. And so that's really not an option for me. And so what I wanted to do is just get this machine laser calibrated, because this machine does generate a really solid surface finish. And for the most part, what's funny is I'll take parts off of here, and most of the time, I'll put mold cavities that I've made here in the VF2, and I'll put them in the EDM. And the EDM is supposed to be good to like 80 millionths, sub 1/10,000th accuracy. And most of the time, it's like right on. It's within like 3 or 4 tenths consistently. But every now and then, I'll put a mold cavity over there, and it'll be off by like 1.5 thou. And you're thinking, oh man, 1.5 thou, that's nothing. And most of the time, it really isn't anything. But before you cut these great big mold base plates that are a few $1,000s a piece, you just want to know that it's right. That's all there is to it. It's not, right now it could be right. It could be perfect right now for all I know. But I don't want to drill it and then measure it and find out it's wrong. That's all there is to it. So I've got some plans. I'm going to stack up some gauge blocks. I've done a few tests, and I actually used my camera, but I don't know if I'll ever post it or not. I stacked up a whole bunch of the Mitutoyo gauge blocks, and we did some sweeping tests, and it seems like for the most part, this machine arrives on location within a couple of tenths repeatably in each direction. But I still would feel better if I had it laser calibrated. So there's that. What's my dream machine? I don't think there's any specific dream machine. I thought that if we got rid of this, if we sold this, I think it would probably, man, this is a great question. Joshua Wentworth asked me, what is my dream machine? And here's the way I see it. I don't think there's a perfect machine. I just don't believe it exists, okay? I think, so I need this. Do I have one of these I can show you? Let me see if I have one of these I can show you. I didn't make this, so don't judge me on the surface finish. This is a product that I've had for years. I got made somewhere else. But this is what I need with all this webbing. This is what I do with the 5-axis rotary. I put it all in. This all had to be done with, this obviously isn't used anymore. We don't use this anymore. But this all had to be done with EDM work in the past. And so our 5-axis work doesn't really need to be particularly accurate. It just has to, within a couple thousandths, no one would ever know, including me. But the rest of the stuff, that stuff matters. Sorry, I know it's rude to be eating, but dude, I literally haven't eaten anything since breakfast, and it's going on 4 o'clock. I think for me, if I could choose a machine now, it would probably be like an Akuma M560 with a rotary on the side of the table. And let me tell you why I would choose it. Akuma, when you buy that machine, it's got like a 5-year warranty on the control, 3 years on parts, and 1 year on labor. And for an additional 1% a year, you can get the rest. So for like an extra $4,000, you get a 5-year warranty on everything. This isn't going to cover crashes and things like that. That's on you. If you stuff the spindle into the table, you're going to be bumming. And if you think one of these is expensive, one of those is even more expensive. But like as an example, just for reference, this machine here came with a 2-year warranty. This machine's under warranty until September of 2021. And traditionally, Haas charges about an extra $6,000 for 1 year, for 1 extra year. Akuma makes their own servos. So if you buy a rotary from another brand, say like Nikken or Sudokoma, you would buy it with Akuma servos. And then we talk about manufacturing and why we see less of it. And I think there are so many reasons that we see less manufacturing. I think there are a lot of people, it just doesn't have the appeal, man. I mean, when's the last time you saw a 16-year-old kid and asked boy or girl and they were excited about making something with a CNC machine? Or maybe they were excited about developing a new little gadget that made a product or improved an existing product or something like that, where they truly valued it. It just, everybody, I think a lot of the youth today are more focused, and I don't have any kids, so just take this for what it's worth. I have nephews. I have 4 nephews and a niece. But I think a lot of the youth today are more focused on being a YouTuber or a celebrity, or maybe going off to college and getting a traditional education for for whatever their field for whatever they're passionate about. I don't think you just see too many people that are passionate about manufacturing in general. And so let's see what we got here. Am I familiar with micro molding machines like a Baby Plast? Curious if you know any machines that are cheap and great for small shops and parts. A Grobe. Yeah, Josh was a Grobe. So there's a guy, this guy's asking about micro injection molding, and yes, I am familiar with it. There's a company here in town. I can't remember if it's called the APIM or APIM or APIMX. It's like a little $12,000 tabletop horizontal injection. It's like a miniature injection molding system that uses like stepper motors and ball screws. It's actually really trick. So I am familiar with it, but I don't know that you're ever going to make. There are issues, right? Reliability issues, how big the shot size is, things like that. Yeah, so Duckhead Inc. is saying that he's starting to see a resurgence. Well, there's a kid at the local RC track, and we were talking to him the other day, and he's like, yeah, I built my 3D printer, then I built a little 6-axis robot, and he's like, I'm like, this kid's like, I don't know, 14 or 15 years old, and he did all of this just goofing off, using the internet, using YouTube. I do think the next generation's coming. I really believe in my heart that you can learn anything you want, basically for free. There are issues though. How well have you learned something if you haven't done it? You can read all the books you want on programming, you can read all the books you want on CNC machining, but until you actually do it, that's a big deal. And so these types of machines, they're tricky. Nobody just makes enough money. I sure the hell in my life never just made enough money to walk out and buy a $130,000 CNC machine. And as the owner of a company that now possesses these machines, I'm not going to just let some kid walk up to it and start mashing buttons until he demonstrates that he's cautious, careful, and knows exactly what he's doing. And so it's kind of tough. But that's why like these little machines, like these little 6040 CNCs and Shape Ocos and X-carves and all these little machines, that's why they're so valuable. They really are laying the groundwork. They're teaching these kids the fundamentals. If you understand what G54 is, if you understand how to calculate a basic chip load, if you understand tool engagement angles and you understand a G43H call, then you understand what makes this big industrial equipment work. So you don't, if you can hand code a little bit of stuff for your Grizzly, then you understand basically what makes this work. The difference is really the level of commitment, right? If you crash that or the respect. When I step up in front of these machines, even now, I do my very best. I turn the rapids down. I single block it. I look at my distance to go screens. I try to jump through the series of hoops. I just try to execute good practices, right? Nobody wants to pay the check. Nobody wants to be the employee that has to tell the boss they just crashed the $100,000 machine. And the boss sure the hell doesn't want to crash the $100,000 machine. So let's see what else we got here. I left my what the hell is the mouse at? It's right here. All right. I'd love an M460E, but I'd have to run it 24 hours a day. Yeah, no kidding. Well, and that's a big issue. Let's see here. So Bob 345 is saying lack of practical skills is the largest issue I see with new grads, whether it be electrical or mechanical engineering. They understand the textbook and the theory, but not how to apply the skill. Bob, I think all of us, you kind of come into your own as you age. I don't know. I'll be 41 in January. I've always been a little bit, I guess, mechanically inclined. But what's interesting is that I get to interact with a lot of people at a lot of different levels in my industry, in the hobby industry. And it's really interesting because the people that are maybe the least familiar with manufacturing, they'll say things like, well, why don't you make this? Or why don't you make that? Or they'll say like, oh, I used to love that product, but so-and-so doesn't make it anymore. They don't understand that even though the product that they love was a great product made by a company that they loved, that company wasn't able to sell enough of those products to justify the investment or the allocation of those financial resources, right? So long story short is, yeah, it was a good product, but it wasn't a good enough product. And now today, it makes things even tougher when you're competing against other countries. Now, I personally, my company competes against China every day. And what that means is just that there are companies that are able to either do one of two things. They either buy their products and have them made in China, or they buy their tooling and they have that tooling is made in China, and then they go to vendors that are made here in America. And I don't care. It doesn't matter. We live in a global market, okay? I have had to learn this lesson, and I'm sharing it with you right here, right now. We live in a global market, all right? Get it through your head, deal with it, live with it. People, in many cases, would choose a local product. So if you're in America like I am, people would like to use an American product, but they won't pay twice the price for it. In fact, a lot of times the threshold is so low that for a $20 product, for $1, they will choose the Chinese product. It's not uncommon. I didn't understand this. I had no idea, okay? Whatever product you're going to create, I get a lot of questions about patents. I don't know why, but a lot of times people seem to think that the idea is so valuable. The idea might be the least valuable portion. It's the execution. It's the actual effort and kind of perseverance that brings products into the market that makes them valuable, not the idea. Good ideas are a dime a dozen, but the effort and execution and perseverance to kind of make it happen, that's a big deal. And so service-based businesses, this is the quit your day job section of this live video. Service-based businesses will forever be the fastest route to getting out of your day job. I'm going to say that one more time for anybody that's listening and anybody that cares. If you really want to get into manufacturing and you want out of your day job, service-based businesses are the fastest way out, which means, finding something you're good at and doing it for a fair rate in your local market. Maybe you're the guy that can burn a tap out of anything on site. Maybe you buy one of those portable tap burners and you go around to the oil fields, and when they snap bolts out, you just burn it off with a tap burner right there on site. Maybe you do that. Getting into large-scale manufacturing, depending on the area you're in, like here in California, labor wages are relatively high, insurance wages are relatively high, all of the rules and regulations, it can be overwhelming. When you add that up on top of the fact that you have to have all the capital, most people think of capital specifically as money. They just think capital, money. That's not true. When you go apply for a loan or a lease on one of these, it's called capital equipment. Capital is the means of production. It's the ability to make things. And once you've built, I feel like a manufacturing business, once it's kind of built, it's very unique because you can apply things like automation into the manufacturing processes. So it can be highly leveraged and highly powerful, but it takes it's a much bigger sandcastle to build. It takes a lot more time, energy, effort, money to build to get it up to that point. And when you're competing against a company that's making the exact same products you are, but they're getting them from China, really, China doesn't have the same labor rates. It doesn't have the same environmental regulations. It doesn't have a lot of the same rules and regulations that we have to compete with, or that we're kind of burdened by. And so it's very difficult. And so you combine the difficulty in the disparity in those two, like say cultures, say America and China, America and wherever. And then you talk about price difference, and if there's a price difference, that's it. It's game over. You've been beaten by a company from somewhere else. How do you quantify the value that you supply? Okay, let me read this to you guys. How do you quantify the value that you supply to your customers? Obviously, you can't compete on price with China, but there are many more factors involved. First of all, I can and do compete on price each and every day. I do compete. I want you to think about something for a minute. Let's just say we're just going to use the cliche term widget, okay? Let's just say that you have 5 widgets and you sell them to the world. Well, if you're selling a lot of widgets, let's just say you sell a couple of hundred widgets a day, you've got to have thousands and thousands and thousands of widgets in a warehouse lining the walls that's 10,000 feet big, right? Because you're selling hundreds of widgets a day. Let's just say they're the size of a softball. You've got to have thousands of these things. So you got to have tons of space that costs money. You have to have shelving. You got to have ladders. You got to have employees that can go get them. And you got to have lots of boxes. You got to have all these things. You got to have a lot of things. And then on top of it, if you run out of your widgets, your customers will buy their widgets from some other widget maker. You have to get good at understanding your market, projecting your, understanding what you sell so that you can project out, so that you don't run out of widgets. You don't want to buy too many widgets though, because then all that money that you have is tied up sitting on riding the shelf for months on end while those widgets don't sell. If you make your own widgets, there are another set of problems. Well, we didn't even talk about what happens when your vendor decides that your order isn't important. So they told you 30 days, but now it's going to be 90. Or maybe they told you it's going to be 60, but they're running behind and now it's 120. And then a ship gets held up in port and then it's another 30 to 60 days. You literally, when you're importing your products, your insurance policy is your over-purchasing of widgets, okay? The more stuff you can afford to buy and keep on the shelf, the safer it puts your business. You have a very different set of problems when you make your own widgets. So in China, when they made your widgets, or anywhere, it doesn't matter. I'm just using China because it's a common place of manufacture, but you can insert any name you want. Canada, Mexico. I'm in America, so it would be anywhere but America. But when you're having your widgets made in Mexico or wherever, they might have 50 widget making machines. There's no way to know, okay? So maybe you're using 1% of their production capacity, maybe you're using 20%, it's hard to say. But for you, all that matters is that you keep widgets on the shelf. And if you got 5 different widgets, you gotta project those numbers and you gotta have a great big bulk inventory of those. When you decide to make your own widgets, whatever they are, the game changes. Now what you're trying to do is, in a perfect world, you'd have like a magic vending machine. I don't know if it was Jay Pearson that said this or when I was reading the Toyota Way. The Toyota production system is pretty interesting. But now what you really want is you want a magic vending machine. You want to be able to just like come over here and just be like, just like, great. Oh, okay, done. You create products as you need them. I think Jay Pearson calls it one-piece flow. And so my 3D printers are a really good example. I have these little Prusa printers, and these things work pretty good. And we would sell a product, and it would take an hour and 43 or 44 minutes to make this product. And it used to sell to, I think, a hobby shop for like $5 or $6. And but you could only make so many per day. So if you ever woke up and there was a hobby shop that say they wanted like 40 of these things or 50 of these things, like, do the math. It takes an hour and 43 minutes. You can make like 12 a day. So they're going to have to wait 5 days. Now, if 3 or 4 hobby shops ask for those, they all ask for 40 or 50. You're weeks out in production because you just don't have the capacity. You don't have that surge capacity. And so it is with any other product. But the nice thing is that I don't have $50,000 in widgets sitting on the shelf wasting, tying up capital. I don't have to have the $5,000 a month warehouse with all that. I don't have to have a fork truck or a fork truck driver for all of that. And so there are many different ways of competing in many different markets. You really just have to look at where the value is both for the customer and where the value is for you as the entrepreneur or the business owner or the investor or whatever the hell it is you want to call yourself. Where there's a will, there tends to be a way. It just isn't always easy. And a lot of times it takes a lot of sacrifice to kind of build the momentum to get over the hill. I always say, nobody wants to push the cart up the hill, but the minute your business crests the hill, everybody's going to want to be on for the ride down the hill. So just be careful. I support those who support me, and I always will. I believe that in my heart. You got to find a way to win. Let's see here. So somebody just asked, did we consider an out-of-state move when we considered a move? And the answer is yes, 100% yes. I have a love-hate relationship with California. I think I've told you guys this before, but I've had 2 spine surgeries now. One where they went through my throat. I had nerve damage down my arm, and I had one on my lower back. I actually have a cadaver ankle where they cut out my old ankle and put one in from someone that had passed away. I love the weather here. I don't mind the heat. I feel like I'm a tropical animal. I don't have any body hair, Like, I'd rather sweat than freeze any day of the week. We have like 300 plus days of sunshine here in Bakersfield. But the political situation, the taxation, it's getting to the point where I don't have to tell you guys. You guys can see that companies they're leaving. People are leaving, companies are leaving. It's just becoming unbearable. And so, yeah, we did consider moving out of state. The time just wasn't right for us. I'm proud to make products here in America. Like, it means a lot to me. Sometimes it hurts a little bit when you see other people that maybe people that you even respect, and they're like, oh yeah, it's so important to them to have a locally made product, and then you see them, for all intents and purposes, intentionally supporting products that aren't that way. And I definitely overestimated how important it was for people to have locally made products. I hate to say this, but I want you to take a good hard look in the mirror right now. This is my tennis shoe. It wasn't made in America. This baseball hat that I got on, I got this from, I bought this in Marseille. My wife and I were on a cruise a few years ago. It definitely wasn't made in America. I'd be willing to bet that there's not a damn thing that I'm wearing. My t-shirt's not made in America. My shorts I got from Tilly's, they're probably not made in America. I got this feeling in the pit of my stomach like we've been beaten from the inside. And I hate even saying that, but I really kind of believe it. The best I can figure, and I hope I'm wrong. Okay? Looks like maybe it went something like this. Unions were created to protect workers from abuse by big corporations. Makes sense. We can all respect that. You know, absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. Well, when the unions were created, they fought the automotive manufacturers. Automotive manufacturers obviously didn't take very long to figure out that things were going to change. Next thing you know, we see money and power being wielded, and we have influence into legislation that allows us to import things less expensively. And the slippery slope had been created. And basically, this is back in maybe in the 70s-ish. And now I think what we find is that most businesses measure their success in money. And I hate to say this, but what else is there, okay? When I was 19, my girlfriend's aunt said to me, Jason, you got to find what you want to do. You got to do that. The money will come later. I cleaned it up over the years, and I say if you pursue the process provides the paycheck. When money is the only measure of success, we start doing things that generate more money but hurt in other areas. I think a lot of the businesses in America were so much more worried about money and never gave any real thought to long-term sustainability. And so we have a huge generation of, looks like my PC, I'm gonna have to plug this in. It just looks like we're just in this we're in a tight spot now. If money always comes first, it's not that money's the lifeblood of your business, you gotta have it. But anyways, I don't know. Long story short, I overestimated how important it would be for people to run or to purchase locally made products. I thought it was a little bit more important. Don't get me wrong, there are some diehards, there are some people that it means a lot to, but there's a lot of people that don't care at all. So let me see if we can end this thing. Let me see what my last topic is. We'll just come down here. I'm just gonna grab the camera, we'll just bring it right down here, along with my stupid Pop-Tart. This is the Super Mini Mill shut down right now. I got these. All right. We've been on here for a while. Okay. Do I only talk to an American audience? No, not at all. I'm talking to everybody. If you live in Rome, or if you live in France or Barcelona or wherever, let's talk about the value of a product, whatever you make. There's ultimately two people in a transaction. There's the guy with the stuff, who made the stuff, hopefully, and then there's the guy with the money. These two people are the principals, the guy with the stuff, the manufacturer, and the purchaser. Everybody else in between is kind of a middleman, and now sometimes they provide huge amounts of value. Amazon provides a huge amount of value. They always make sure that that stuff is in stock. They always make sure that shipping is cheap, and that they make sure that the manufacturers ship quickly. They make sure that shipping is cheap, like they provide value. That isn't always the case. A lot of times, products have to touch so many hands that each each of those people takes a bite out of the margin, we'll just call it. Well, shipping is a huge deal, and it's an insanely huge business. And the fact is, many of the companies that manufacture products all over the world, whether it's India, Vietnam, China, Taiwan, wherever, many of these companies for the longest time were kind of walled off, if you will, from the larger markets, Japan, America, Germany, some of these very, the UK. Well, what's happened is that the internet has opened up channels of communication and made it easy for customers to find manufacturers. It's made it even easier for these manufacturers to actually get access to the markets, to the customers themselves. And shipping, like DHL, FedEx, stuff like that, has made this pretty easy. Go on eBay. You know what an e-packet from China is, right? And so, no matter where you're at in the world, I like the idea of money circulating in a local economy. Okay? That's all I'm getting at. If you're going to if you make furniture and you got a plumber, and if you only had 10 people, I like to think of these things in terms of like 10 people, because it puts things in so much in a perspective. If you only had an economy of 10 people and you had like one plumber, one electrician, one carpenter, one blacksmith, one whatever, one farmer, it puts things in perspective. Your money circulates in your economy. I think what we're seeing now is we're seeing a lot of the politics that talk about like redistribution of wealth through I'm not getting into a political discussion with you guys, but whether you believe that billionaires should or shouldn't exist or any of this kind of shit, I'm staying out of that. But they're talking about taxation and redistribution of wealth. Well, think about a company that designs a product, gets the product made in, let's just say, Asia, and then makes 10 million of them and sells them in America. Maybe the lion's share of the money did go to the company here in America. Maybe that's true. But there's still some underlying chunk of money that's probably substantial that went overseas. And so if those countries are buying things and trading from us, wherever it is, whoever you are, if there's if the playing field is level and the rules are the same and we see similar levels of trade, then you can't complain. But when you walk out into the business world and you see this like ridiculously tilted playing field, you just know something's wrong. Something's not right. So so someone asked me a couple of weeks ago, they said, how come nobody makes a radio-controlled race car here in America? And the answer is simple. It's just not cost effective. No one's been able to do it cost effective. I think the next radio-controlled race car that if we were to see an American-made RC car, I think you would see something that is probably either open sourced or 3D printed. I'm surprised we haven't seen something down that path yet. Let's see here. All right, you guys. Well, so I guess here's my take. I'll try to conclude this live stream. I don't think there's a perfect machine. I don't think it exists. I think that if you're a business that is specialized and you have the work, you can buy machines that are very closely matched to the work, and that's probably the perfect machine in that instance. But for me, I needed a machine that could do a lot of different things. And so we started off with the Super Mini Mill. I still run it a bunch, still love it. It's a great little machine. We bought the VF2, and it has served me well. Was it the perfect purchase? Maybe not. But it served me well, and it's made a lot of good parts, and it's helped my company succeed. So it was for sure a good decision. Both of the Mitsubishi Synchro EDMs that we've had, the first one I kind of blew out on. I didn't know which questions to ask, and we've been very happy with the EA12, knock on wood. I don't know what the right machine is for you guys. In order to quit your day job, I think the safest bet, even if you develop a product which I think is a great thing to do. You see a lot of guys out there like Synergy Design on Instagram and Freelux, and these guys that are making a lot of this EDC, this everyday carry equipment, but they're making this, it's like a blend between art and utility. It's like a beautiful putter, but it's handcrafted, or a beautiful flashlight, which is very useful, but it's kind of one of a kind or rare. I think that if you combine some of that, some of your own product combined with maybe doing job shop work that is very highly specialized to both your skill set and your machine's capability, I think that's the best chance to really get out of your day job quickly. And last but not least, developing the perfect product is black magic. It's finding the right demand. It's finding the right method of manufacture. It's understanding exactly who you're competing against, exactly what their strengths are, exactly what their weaknesses are, and understanding really what it's going to take. It's probably easier said than done, is the truth. It can be done, it just isn't easy to do. And by the way, when you're going through all of this, whatever your journey is, whether you want to stand in front of a Tormach 1100 MX or a VF2 or a Super Mini Mill or a Mazak or whatever it is, I don't care. The machine doesn't matter. If you want to go out in your garage or you want to rent a space and go do your thing, just know that while you're busy pushing your cart up the hill, it takes sacrifice. It takes missing date night. It just takes a lot. It takes a lot of sacrifice to reach that critical mass where you can begin your downward journey, you know, when you've crested the hill. So your family's got to be prepared to deal with that. I don't have any kids, so your wife's going to have to deal with that, your kids, your spouse, loved ones, whatever. Just know that it's not going to be easy. There will be hurdles. There will be trouble ahead. And I tell my wife every day that I'm a professional hurdler. As soon as I fix one issue, you know, like, oh, this crashed or that messed up or this blew up or this stopped working, as soon as I solve that problem, I just prepare for the next hurdle because it's for sure coming. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So, all right, you guys, it looks like that's that. I guess if you guys have any questions before we wrap this up, let me know. And if not, we'll call it good. Did my phone die? Oh. I got a low battery warning. It looks like we're back. All right. We're back. I don't know if you guys could hear any of this. Yeah, so guys are asking, real quick before I cut you guys loose, let me just say this. People have been asking about a variety of different videos that I've taken down over the last few months. I still have the Sile. I haven't decided. I may sell the Sile. I sold my little Grizzly. I don't know if I told you guys. I sold this guy to a guy that lives up near, I want to say, San Francisco. Dude makes insane RC jet airplanes, which is absolutely awesome. Super nice guy. I sold that. I may be selling the Sile. I took down a variety of videos that were old, outdated, inaccurate. Things have changed. Times have changed. That's the fundamental reason for most of these. For some reason, people seem to think that if a video goes up, whether it's good or bad, that it was supposed to remain there forever. And that just isn't always the case, right? And so that's that answer. There's a few questions coming in. I'll try to answer these before we cut this loose. It says something... Let's see here. Keenan Barker saying something like a Fidal instead of a Tormach. Vision Forge says, am I selling the DIY 5-axis trunnion for the Grizzly? Vision Forge, you're going to laugh. I may, you know, I hate making promises to you guys because I don't know that I can always keep up. But this, I think, is the one you were talking about. And I've been tinkering with it a little bit. Hi, Jason. Maybe I could get your thoughts on buying an older machine for the first big upgrade from a converted mill, something like a Fidal instead of a Haas or Tormach. Keenan, there are a few questions I need to ask you before I can tell you my opinion, or at least let me give you a few caveats. If you're willing to work on the machine, I would inspect it first. If you're willing to work on it, I don't think there's anything wrong. I think that's actually a great option. There's a pretty big aftermarket for Fidal machines. My brother runs a bunch of those back in the Midwest. There are a lot of guys that have done, there's a lot of content. Atman Unlimited and others have done a lot of good content on those. So yeah, I don't think that's a bad decision at all, but do your homework, make sure that you have the electricity to run it, make sure that if something burns out like a circuit board or a monitor or something critical, that you can swing that and that you're capable of fixing it yourself. The reason I bought the Super Mini Mill 2 is because I needed a machine that was just do the job. It wasn't that I was incapable of working on a machine like this, it's that I didn't want to. I was trying to build a business, which I'm still doing, and I just wanted a machine that when I hit the go button, it just did exactly what it was supposed to do each time, every time, no exceptions, no excuses. I think the Fadal machines are a very, very unique. If I was starting like a little home garage machine shop, I would definitely consider one for sure. There are so many companies out there that are doing retrofit kits for new, better, new servo kits, new drive kits, new controller kits. Like yeah, I would consider that for sure. Yeah, Aaron Go, that's who it is. Jonathan Taylor just said this. It's Aaron Go, G-O-U-G-H. If you type in Aaron Go, I'm pretty sure he's a knife maker. He did an awesome restoration video like 4 or 5 years ago or something like that on like a Fadal, and now he just released a video a month ago, I don't know, a couple days ago. I just watched it I watched it start to finish. He bought 2 of them, restored them both, and then sold one of them. But yeah, I would definitely go check that out. Someone said the MX is definitely worth the upgrade. The BT30 spindle and servo motors make a world of difference compared to the older stepper only models. No question, I'm a big fan of the BT30 style taper spindle with the drive dogs for sure. All right, Aaron offered me a Fadal. Guess he's keeping them. Okay. All right, guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Looks like, man, I can't believe it. Looks like there's a couple hundred of you guys watching. I didn't realize I just looked over just now. It looks like there's 210, 212 people watching. So hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. As always, as soon as we get off here, I'll be unlisting this, and this will be going into my Patreon account. If you're one of my patrons, I know there's not a lot of you guys, but thank you. I appreciate it. The encouraging words, the positive interaction. It's probably been one of the more heavy influencers that's kept me making YouTube content. There's a lot of trolls out there. There's a lot of guys that know everything. They're the only ones that know anything apparently, and sometimes it can just burn you out, to be completely honest with you. So thank you for supporting me. Thank you for watching this live stream, and we'll see you guys next time. Later.